right, so we are here with, introduce yourself and tell me what you do.
I'm Gary from Wrath, and I'm the lead vocalist.
Yeah, the original G.
The original.
And and I'm Gary Modica, the original bass.
Yeah, I'm Gary Golwitzer, sorry, that's Gary Modica, sorry.
So
40 years of Wrath, so we're gonna be really going back to the beginning and trying to get the whole story.
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you get interested in music in the first place?
oh man, I know both of us got a strong musical history, but dude, I was tiny and I didn't even have a guitar. I had a piece of a broken chair with and my mom and dad got me a plastic, Sears Roebuck's, kind of toy guitar, and that started there, and eventually got a real guitar, and then my Memphis Les Paul, because we were in other band together.
Yeah, our first band ever, not Wrath, just our first band ever. Him and I were in there.
Yeah, so
and he played guitar and I played guitar.
And so it was rock, back then.
Covers, AC/DC, Nugent.
And my mom, she said, I got when you wanted a guitar, I didn't know. I thought you weren't going to be playing this. Yeah, I thought you were going to be playing Glenn Campbell. I went, I'm doing Glenn Campbell. But I literally, since I was really young, and Gary's the same way.
Yeah, same. Yeah. I had older sisters, and their boyfriends were in bands, and so they got me started in that direction.
What made you want to even become a musician? Because first you like music, and then eventually you want to be on the other side of the stage.
I have an older brother who was a bass player in a band, so it kind of, I guess, inspired me in a way. He played bass, I played guitar, and I did that for a couple of years. Like I said, me and Gary played together, and then.
Well, what's really funny too, and I don't know. I don't hang around with a lot of young people now, so I don't know. Maybe it still is, but when we were growing up, everybody was in a band, or at least playing, everybody. I don't care either, everybody in the neighborhood. Somebody was a guitar player, drummer, bass player. Now, I just don't see that at all out there, but, it was, everybody we knew was a musician.
Absolutely.
It's a different scene these days.
Right.
And there was a shortage of bass players. My brother was a bass player, so I would play his bass. So then one day I just said, screw it, I'm going to try playing bass. And I played bass, and then that was it. I still play guitar, I have guitars, but, obviously bass is my thing. So that was it for me. And Gary's been a great guitar player for years, and in bands, and did his thing. And that's how we found Gary. Other than being childhood friends.
Oh, right. But playing bar bands.
When you got this band together, can you pinpoint when was the first rehearsal?
Well, I actually, in a weird way, can. Under the kind of the umbrella of Wrath, it was myself and Mike Nurkinen, the original guitar player. We had a band, a couple other local kind of people in the area, and so that's kind of when it started. And we did our first backyard party show, and Scott's band, who was in Ambulance at the time, was.
Ambulance? You mean?
No. What was it?
What was their name?
Ambulance.
Oh gosh.
Armory.
Yeah.
Was playing with us, and that's how I met Scott. And me and Scott hit it off. So then we kind of brought Scott in the fold. But originally, it came down to I had Skip McGullum and Jeff McGullum at that time was our first kind of Wrath practice with Mike. And we did that for a couple of years, and we were a bar band, did a lot of covers, like 15 Iron Maiden songs.
They played a gotta tell the story. Yeah. We did a battle of the bands, and it was my band, I was playing guitar for at the time. Beat his band, Wrath.
They were older. They were more experienced.
So
they were good.
When did it become Wrath? Did you have any other names previously? And you mentioned some names before already.
What happened was, when we were putting the Wrath band together, my brother's band had an original song called Black Knight's Wrath. And it was one of my favorite songs that they had written. So I liked Wrath, so I took that, and then I came to practice, and I said, well, we're looking for a name. I said, well, how about Wrath? And we also had Realm. So we were kind of going, well, it's going to be Wrath or Realm. We went with Wrath, luckily, Because
Goes around.
there's at that
Wisconsin.
point there may not have been a realm at that point, but years later, here we are. We did tons of shows with Realm and good friends with those guys. So it worked out perfect.
They were a fun band.
Yeah,
We had a
so-
good time with them.
What were your early influences at that time?
Oh, for me, it was definitely AC/DC, Sabbath, and The Who, because I'm a fan of John Entwistle's bass playing. So that was it for me, and then from there, it immediately
And Glenn
went.
Campbell.
Huh?
And Glenn
Campbell. Always playing in the background. It went Maiden and Judas Priest, but it really AC/DC, Sabbath.
Yeah, at the beginning, mine, same thing. It was AC/DC, Aerosmith, Rush. I was a huge Rush fan, early Rush. But then, once I had a friend who worked at a record store. So he was bringing all the new wave of British heavy metal stuff, and he turned me on to early Maiden and, Angel Witch and, Raven and Vardis and, everybody.
Yeah, he was way ahead of the curve.
Yeah, and it's like,
amongst our friends.
it's like, this stuff is great, and Saxon, and, just, it was such a changing point in my musical taste, so.
Now, instrumentally, when did you kind of realize that you onto something special in those early days?
Well, for me personally, when we kind of made a decision to kind of go away from doing covers, and we had Gary's band had played, we had seen Gary, he sang a couple songs and played guitar in his other band, and we wanted to bring Gary in, and Kill 'Em All was just out, and it was like, that's what we want to do, that's the direction, and that's kind of what we kind of went for in the first Megadeth record. So that's kind of was like the driving force, and at that point our writing and our vision was very, very focused on not just being a bar band, not just doing whatever locally. It was about writing material and what do we got to do, put out the demo, get it out there, get signed, go on tour. I mean, it was a definite vision that we were going for. I mean, and we were all 100% all in. So,
Yeah, because when it started with Gary and Mike, and like you said, they were playing bars and stuff, and then Scott joined a year prior to me, and they moved up a whole nother level when Scott joined, you know what I mean? So, and then when they asked me to join, and Rick Rios, who on the original drummer, well, he's not on this particular copy, but he's on the original Fit of Anger, and when us five got together, that it just something. That's like you asked when we noticed it. That I would say that point
that's
like,
when it was.
And specifically, when you got Gary in 1983, which is a year later after the band formed, under what circumstances did he join? Because I mean, he's talking about playing in a band that you would compete with.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, because that was one band that we competed with, and then he had another band, Stepchild, that was doing quite well locally, and they had a singer, and then Gary would sing a couple songs, and that's when we went.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for, and we know Gary, we like Gary, so this could be.
Yeah, and it was so funny because I always played guitar too, you know, and so when they called me Gary, I still remember this day. Him calling me and then going, we want you to be the singer, and I'm going, you mean without a guitar? I don't know if I could do it. That'd be weird. I don't know. Let me think about it. So that's how it all happened, you know.
So the first demo tape you did back in 1985, called "Children of the Wicked." What can you tell me about that tape?
That was songs that we wrote together, the five of us, but heavily driven by Mike and Scott. Gary did, of course, all the lyrics and everything, but we went in again. That was kind of like our super focus. Yeah, and so we went in on a weekend and we recorded. Was it 6 songs?
6 songs.
6 songs on a weekend, and recorded all 6 songs, and just you get. It's just rolling tape. There's no editing. There's no nothing, and you just go for it. So
it's funny about that with the demo tape because back in those days, back in those days, I had the dual cassette, And I would sit there and tape, you know, I had the blank tape and then, you know, the master tape and tape, you know. I did this hundreds and hundreds of times, you know, and that's how we made that demo, you know. And we at first we thought, you know, we're just going to basically send them to record companies. Well, then next thing you know, we had them at Strawberry Fields and a couple other places, and they were selling like hotcakes, you know. So it's like, oh, we got something going here.
Coincidentally enough, you released another tape back in 1985, right? Like the second demo, right?
Well, what we did was what happened was because of the tape doing so well locally, and we didn't even scratch the surface sending out the fanzines or labels and nothing. Two local guys, heavily into the metal scene, way deeper, way more into it than we ever were, really, quite honestly.
Oh yeah.
Dennis and Phil. So it's Dennis
Baker,
Phil Baker,
and Phil Baker.
Yeah.
Right.
They wanted to start a label, and I believe we were the first band on their label for King Classic Records. So they
with
immediately came
Green
to
World
us.
distribution, which was key because Green World was a pretty good distribution at the time. They had Motley Crue and you know the first original Too Fast for Love and somebody else too. I can't remember who it was, but anyways, it was good distribution. So when they said you know Green World distribution, we're like, oh, that's awesome, you know.
So we immediately we signed up with them. So we needed more material. So we went back in. We recorded a few more songs, and then that finished up the Fit of Anger record. And that's kind of how the Fit of Anger, Chiller the Wicked demo became the Fit of Anger record, because we just added a few more songs and went back in and remixed it, you know. And when we mixed that record, at that point, I believe, I don't know if it was Kill 'Em All, but I thought it was Ride the Lightning. It was Ride the Lightning.
Yeah, it was Ride the Lightning.
It was an 8-track studio, you know, and this guy had a great history of working wonders with an 8-track studio. But we gave him Ride the Lightning and said, let's side by side EQ this, and kind of what we went for, and that was our kind of vision.
So you want to show the first album?
So this was the first.
Okay.
The
album.
The first
Gary's
album.
bass.
That's my bass. I have that bass here tonight, actually. I oddly enough happened to bring it
You should have brought it. See?
I got it. It's over there. You know. So, but I actually have that bass, and we didn't really have an album cover, and we were doing a photo shoot at Edgewater.
Yeah.
With Rudy Harris.
Right.
And we kind of discussed it. Me and Gary kind of took this bass at the jam spot.
Right.
It was already beat, but we took it another notch.
I took it up another level.
So we did that, and that became the album cover. But so what happened? So we did that for King Classic Records, which has a great collage. It really tells the story of kind of our local scene, because you know we were a decent sized fish in that pond. You know what I mean? So we drew really well, and it was a great time in Waukegan. And I can kind of tell you how we came from Fit of Anger to Nothing to Fear. Was there was a problem with Green World and Enigma, and the Enigma with the distribution was all tied in weather, and all of a sudden everything got shoved that was on Green World. So we then became under ownership of Enigma Records, that record. So it's about to happen.
We knew.
Yeah, we knew.
The album is listed, I mean, you are listed as the producers for the album. What was that like? And also, I think Eric Greif was
He did
credited for some of the songs.
Yeah, on the remix. Many years later, we kind of came in contact because he was doing stuff in Milwaukee, and I think we got introduced to him through Realm.
Yeah, it was.
And so, and that's kind of how he got involved, because on the
And then we did Fanatics and In the Wake are two new songs on there that were not on the original Fit of Anger.
Yeah.
And he did the engineering and producing on that, and then he remixed the whole album.
Was there any touring done for this album? Was there any touring done for this album? Was there a tour?
Touring
Oh,
Fit of
you know
Anger?
what? We didn't get an opportunity to tour until we did the combo. What happened was
Right.
this album got shelved, and we met. So then we got in because now I'm now trying to get involved, trying to get Enigma to release to give it back to us so we can do what we want. They were like, that ain't happening anytime soon. But they liked the band and they saw the numbers that the record was selling. So they said, we're interested in you guys because it did really well overseas. So then they said, what else do you got? Well, we had already been working on new material. So I had met Ron Gowdy, who was instrumental, huge in the history of this band. I sent him some material that on a boombox recording. He loved it. He said, we're interested. So we decided, yeah, we're interested. And so he said, well, we want to do, they did a 5-record deal, same money on the back end. And it all sounded phenomenal, so we did Nothing to Fear. And he immediately offered us, he says, what if we can get Ronnie Montrose to produce the record? And we went, absolutely.
Yeah.
And he had just done the Heathen record.
Is that Brian or Rob?
Probably Sean.
Oh, could be Sean.
What kind of a reception were you getting in the Chicago scene at that point?
It was questionable. It was good, but there was a divide between Chicago
And the suburbs.
and the suburbs.
I noticed that too.
Considered a suburb band, rightfully so. But the promoters, Sean Duffy, would put us on good shows in Chicago, and they did well. And I think.
And we're friends with all the bands.
Yeah.
E-Drum and No White and
Yeah.
War Cry, all those guys.
Yeah.
Trouble.
Alright, so when you started to write for Nothing to Fear, what progress did you notice from Fit of Anger?
The songs were much more just technical, a lot more thought put into them, a lot more structure. Fit of Anger is very raw. It's kind of like, not to keep using the same comparison, but like Metallica, Kill 'Em All. Raw, just rock, this thrash, boom, boom, boom. Where this was much more technical. Our writing improved like 100 times, compared to, Scott and Mike just were getting, and at that time, it was like, they played the most difficult stuff in the world that you can, everything had to be an 8-minute song and 8,000 changes and 50 riffs. And,
So there was a definite different mental approach that they took writing that record. And it was a very guitar-oriented record.
Oh, yeah.
So really, it was really... Those two of them were sitting down writing this record. And us just coming in, giving opinions and everything. But the two of those guys wrote that record.
Oh yeah, totally.
What was it like to work with legendary Ronnie Montrose as a producer?
Boy, if I could go back,
Yeah, he was awesome.
he was a
And what did he
blast.
contribute to the overall sound?
Well, again, I just had this conversation earlier today with somebody else. This record is one of our most coveted records by everyone. And it's really, a lot of it has to do with Ronnie because he
totally.
took charge of that record and he wanted to do something different. And then at first, it wasn't what our vision was.
No.
And so, he kind of locked Gary in the studio and for a couple days and then tracked vocals. We didn't hear it. We didn't know what was going on. We came in at the end, and then we were, okay, we recorded music, vocals are done. Let's sit down to mix. And then Ronnie said, I'd feel better if I was in the studio I'm used to working with and working with my engineer. If you guys are cool with it, let me take it back to San Francisco and let me finish the record on my own. I'll send it to you. If you guys want to change anything, you can change it, but let's go with that. And we were like, you have great. Let's do that. So we did it, but we thought, you'd be there, but you're just not. And so he took it, and this came in the mail. You know what I mean? The record the cassette came to my house FedEx on a Saturday morning, and I heard it, and I went, "Fuck is this?" I'm like, "This is not what all I expected," because he
changed guitars.
Yeah, he he did these processors to the guitar. And it was just a different vision than what we had in mind. And then I talked to the label, and I was like, "Dude, this is not what we had in mind." They're like, I go, "We may have to go back in there and fix it." And I went, "No, it's great. Trust me, it's great. And there's no more money. That's your record." And we went,
This is it.
This is it. We were like, okay. And then it came out, and it was like either people loved it or maybe they didn't love it. You know what I mean? It was just not. It was kind of one of those things. But over time, hands down, this is the record everybody comes for. You know what I mean? And so you can't.
It's funny, I think Joel still has that, doesn't he? Or did he give that to you?
Yeah, he gave it to me. I got copies.
It's like an old demo tape.
It's the dailies mix.
Before Ronnie Montrose was involved, and it's so different sounding. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's Ronnie. And like I always tell the story. And these guys were kicked out of the studio. Ronnie didn't want anybody in the studio, just him and I. And I'm like, so nobody could really offer opinion. And Ronnie just kept going, "I don't care, I could go as high," and he goes, higher. I go, "Ronnie, I can't go any higher, my God," and he's the one who got me to do those, and I'm like,
because it wasn't recorded or it wasn't written in this manner.
No, not at all. And so it's like, still to this day I would like to tell Ronnie, I wish you wouldn't have made me go so high, but I mean,
because I got to try to do that every night.
Yeah, well, not only that, but there's a lot of things I would have liked to change vocally on there, but it is what it is. I mean, I'm still very proud of it. It's like you said, our best, received album, but it's just I wish there was things I could have changed if I had.
How was that album received, like throughout the metal world? Because it really puts you on the map. It did.
Yeah,
it did.
Absolutely. And like I said, it you know what they say, there's no bad press. But I mean, I've got phenomenal reviews, and I've got some reviews that are not so phenomenal. You know what I mean?
Right.
But over time, it has risen. So, it was what we were competing with back then. The market was saturated. There was a lot of great metal bands. So, but it's held up. I'm proud of it, and we're still doing it.
Yeah, no matter where we play too, and fans, they always say,
they come with this record.
They come and they always go, "Ripped into pieces." It's like,
yeah. So
I hear you say, "Ripped into pieces." I'm like, I just laugh,
My son brought his friend to one of our rehearsals, and we play a lot of stuff from all materials, whatever, for rehearsal. And my son's friend tells my son, he goes, because we were playing other stuff, he's like, "When's he gonna do the voice?" So, he's got the voice, so it's, it is what it is.
Now, what was done to promote this album touring-wise? What were you able to do at that time?
They ran a lot of ads, they pushed a lot of radio, a lot of college, they did a lot of push on that, and
we went everywhere.
They hooked us up with our current, to this day, co-manager, booking agent. His name's Ed Puglisi, he's out in Florida, and they hooked us up with him, and they put us on the road. We got on the road with Death. Overkill, Dr. No, Danzig, Pantera. We just tons of stuff. They were getting us great opening slots. We were
Raven and Testament.
Yeah, Testament and Raven, and did that with Realm. That was good.
Yeah.
So it was a good time. If I had it to go back again, because you're always pushing, to take the moment, because now in hindsight you see how music's changed. You go, I wish I would have enjoyed it even more.
Right.
Taking it in.
Right.
Like when we played Fenders with
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just like, here we are.
Dark Angel, Us, and Forbidden.
You know,
Wow.
It's just a great show.
That's a great bill.
and you know,
Yeah.
Rick Rubin's there. You know,
Oh, and Viking too.
Yeah, and you're like going, God, I wish I would have like paid more attention.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was fun. It was really.
Now in 1988, Gary leaves the band. It kind of stops the momentum in its tracks. What happened?
Well,
We really don't know.
Well, you know what? I got to chalk. I always, anybody who asks me, and I just, quite honestly, I just chalk it up to immaturity, because, quite honestly, the way we felt, Gary was married, and you know he had trying to hold down a household and a wife and a career, and we didn't get that. I mean, most of us at that point in time were living at home with our parents, so we felt. I always felt like we felt that he wasn't as focused or as it was, and so we just kind of, you know, and instead of being mature and having a conversation and talking about it, we didn't. You know what I mean? We just felt like, oh, dude, he's not into this, he's not showing up, he's this and that. It's like, no, man, a dude's working a mega job, and he's got a house he's got to pay for, and he's got a wife, and he's got stuff he's got to do, and you got to like figure out how to juggle that. We all juggle that now, but we didn't back then, so we didn't.
So that's what happened.
Gary, what's your take on this event?
I don't know. I mean, it's all a blur to me. I really do. Every time I think about it, I go, I don't even remember what the fuck happened, to be honest.
We had a good thing going.
Yeah.
We did.
It was, you know, the momentum was.
I mean, it definitely it hit me for a loop, or threw me for a loop.
Yeah.
Correct term there. And you know, I was like kind of in a fog and lost for a while until I ran into actually James. You know, and that's when James, you know, said, "Oh, you know, come sing for Stige." And I'm like, I knew Stige, and
We'll get to that.
okay,
We'll get to that.
all right,
All right. So, Rat goes on. How did you find Kurt to be a new singer? And what did he bring to the band?
What it was kind of, there was a change was happening in the scene. Testament was coming up. We were huge fans of Testament, and we wanted a lower Testament type. This was kind of what, I don't say we were going for that, because it's really not my Testament, but he got compared a lot to it. But what happened was, when we went out on the road for this record, Dave, the drummer who's on this record, he did the tour with us. He had joined the band, and he was on the road. He toured on this record. Mike Fron, who played on this record, never toured with us. So Dave toured with us, and Kurt was friends with Dave. And so that's how we got introduced with Kurt. And so that's kind of how that happened, and we fell into that situation. So we did that.
What can you tell me about the album with Kurt? So show the record and tell me anything that there is to say.
Well, this record, some of this stuff was written with Gary, because Gary's got different lyrics to a lot of these songs.
Yeah.
So
I think quite a few of them. Actually, yeah.
So we had went in and started working with Kurt, and we had become, over the years, such good friends with Ron Gowdy at the record label. And in the meantime, he had produced several Guar records. I think he was involved on some level producing the first Poison record, and he had a few other credits he was doing, and we thought it was a good opportunity to have him come in and work with the band, and spend about a month hanging out in Illinois, because he's from California, and having fun with him. And we recorded this record at Royal Recorders in Lake Geneva. And then same thing happened. He says, I feel better mixing this record in California with my engineer in my studio.
And learn your lesson, did you?
And we said, not this fucking time. And we said, if we do this, you can go and do it, but somebody's got to come with you. Scott had job he had to attend to. I'm not the guy to make the musical decisions. I didn't trust my opinions and my ears at that time. I would have a different opinion now. But back then, I said, I'm not the guy for that job. So we sent Mike Nurkinen along, and Mike went out there for the week, and they mixed the record. And they nailed it. They did a really good job, except a little squeak at the closed doors. It was supposed to be a big boom, and it sounds like a screen door that closes. It's pretty lame. But other than that, that's kind of how that record came about, and it was the same thing. The label helped definitely put us out on the road, and we toured.
How did your fan base react to a new vocalist?
It was 50-50. Half of people really liked Kurt a lot, and a lot of people will, to this day, will tell you, this is my guy.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So
it's to every each and all, or to each their own.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way I look at it.
Gary, what did you think about Rat without somebody else other than you singing?
Well, at the beginning, of course, obviously I was not too happy. So I was like, fuck them, whatever, that attitude. But after a while, you kind of, especially when I started. I won't mention the one until we get to it, but as I got into another band, then it became less and less, and you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but at the first time, sure, I was pissed.
And speaking of that other band, you joined Stygen and released a record, which we have here. You want to show it and maybe tell us how it came to be and what were your memories of Stygen?
Yeah, well, like I said, James got a hold of me, and he was a huge, James Harrison, he was a huge person in the scene and stuff. And we had known Stygen. I mean, they were local from Libertyville, but nobody in the band except for the guitar player was in there at this point. So I was like, when he said Stygen, I go, what? Well, then I came to rehearsal and I said, okay, I'll do this. I said, but there's a couple things got to change. I said, number one, we got to get rid of this drummer. And he's like, okay. So we got Dennis Lesh, who used to be in Trouble. He did the Run to the Light album with Trouble. And then, we started working on some new stuff. And the first thing we did was Seconds Till Death, the demo tape. And then Lines in the Sand, which is like a little EP. And then we went in, and we met Dave Chastain in the meantime. And Dave Chastain got us on Leviathan Records. And then he introduced us to Bill Metoyer, who Bill Metoyer ended up producing Rage, but all these years later. But Bill produced this album, and and that's it. I was really happy with it. He did an awesome job. And
so since I asked Gary how he felt about Rat without him, how did you feel about Stygen?
Oh, we didn't like it. But they were doing, you know what I mean? There was a rivalry there, no doubt about it.
Right,
you know what I mean? But they were doing plenty of stuff. They were doing road. They were touring. They were doing stuff, and so it's kind of like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. How you doing?
It was what it was, but but they were
like he said, immaturity.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
So in 1992, I guess you do a demo, and then things gonna come to an end. What happened?
What happened was after this record, and it did sell well, and things were going well. Ron at the label was moving us from Medusa to Enigma Capital, which was way better distribution, way more money. And it was like, all right, this is going to be great. And we start writing material, all was good. We did a pre-production recording, and we sent to him, all was fine, and then all of a sudden, Enigma lost the distribution deal with Capital. So then everything just went, ugh. So Ron's like, well, we can still do another record, or, because we were tight. Best of friends. He's one of the best humans that walked the earth. For me, in our history of rap, he was like the best. He was huge for our band. He said, let's go in the material's strong. He says, let's go in, let's re-record it, not just as pre-production. Let's do something we can shop. And he was going to shop it for us with some overseas labels and release us from the Medusa label and let us do that. And we said, sure, that sounds like a plan. So we did that. We went back and recorded it again. And we started producing stuff to get it shopped, making copies and everything, and then all of a sudden the grunge thing hit, and the kind of whole thing just kind of went petered out. And I want to say, quite honestly, it changed so much that we personally started to lose a little interest in chasing the same scene that we've been chasing, but then it was deteriorating. And it was kind of like, maybe this isn't so much fun. Scott left the band. We had gotten, because he had family obligations, multiple kids. We had one guitar player, Chris Nelkin from Tyrant's Reign, join us for about a year and a half. I'd say maybe 2 years at most. It wasn't that long. And then he left the band. He got sick. And then we got Krista Jurek, who was in Intrepid Descent, and he was a producer, recording person. So he was helping us with the recording process and everything. So we kind of decided, you know what, maybe we'll just take a break. So we all Chris did his thing. Me, Mike, and Dave stayed together, and we call it the bowling years, where people go out and they go bowling every Wednesday. We would still practice for all those years that we didn't do anything. We'd get together and we wrote like goofy, weird music I would never listen to, ever. But it was just something to do, and we did that. And then little by little we got to itch, and so every now and then we'd get back and we'd do a reunion show every handful of years. And we even did reunion shows with Gary, because Gary went back to his band, Stepchild, was it?
Yeah, Stepchild, yeah.
He went back to Stepchild, and we even did a co-headlining gig, and Gary came up and sang, you know, everything, history was behind us at that point. And because we're childhood friends. I mean, like,
I think that was on the 25th or 20th anniversary.
Yeah, it was 20th.
Yeah, it was 20th anniversary.
You're right.
Yeah.
So we did that on our 20th anniversary. We got up and did some stuff. There's videos I think on Facebook, or at least I got them. Or not on Facebook, but on YouTube. But so then we kind of circled back around and kind of Scott got his feet wet again. He was like, yeah, maybe I'll do this again. And then Scott came back after that, and little by little we continued to play. And then Scary was still doing his thing here and there with Stepchild.
Yeah.
And
mostly I was out of music for quite a while.
Yeah.
You know.
And we had to cycle through. We had another EP that we did.
Yes,
and had another
the
singer.
EP in 2008.
Yeah, we did that EP, and we worked with John for a couple years, I think. And nice guy. He just wasn't well received with the people. You know, we couldn't get any momentum going, and so we kind of decided to part ways. Kurt came back and we did a reunion show with him, and Kurt said, you know what, I'll come back and do shows and play with you guys, and let's do the Wrath thing again. But he lives in Texas. So for a while there we were doing shows. He would just fly in, do a weekend here and there, and then he'd go home. And so we did that for a while, and then it didn't work out for either of us. So we decided we need a singer locally, which brings us
to this. That's like 2014. So what happened?
So we're looking for singers, and a lot of them came and went, nothing. We found this guy out of Milwaukee, Scott Matrice. We hit it off personally with him, first rehearsal, and he learned a couple songs from our past, and he sounded pretty good on them, and we worked with him. And he also was a guitar player, mainly, and he knew how to write. And so we started working with him, and we did a run. We did a good chunk of time with him.
Isn't his cousin Dave?
And yeah, his cousin.
Dave Matrice from Jungle Rap?
Yeah.
That's his cousin.
That's his cousin. So he's, so we did that, and we got asked. Well, what happened was, this is the best, in a weird, how it all kind of just happens. We were doing, I think, one of our first shows with Matrice locally. And the opening band had the original drummer from the Fit of Anger record. So he was there, Rick Rios was there that night. And Mike Nurkinen, our original guitar player, comes that night. And lo and behold, Gary, who hasn't come out and seen us in a million years, he shows up.
Well, actually, Joel out there is the one that got me to go.
He comes to the show. So me and Scott, we all sound checked and whatever, and then we're gonna go and grab some coffee. And all of a sudden, because Gary comes to shows early, he wants to see all the bands and support everybody. We're like, fuck, Gary's here. And we're like, me and Scott were like, we're leaving to go get some coffee. And we're like, oh, this is a mind trip. And we have not, all five of us, been in the same room in a long time. Like all of us. So we're out drinking coffee and we're like, dude, maybe we can get Gary to come up and do a song or two. Who knows? And then, Rick's here, Mike's here. So we're trying to figure it out. And we go back to the club and we just kind of asked everybody, and everyone, yeah, let's do it. So we did it. Somebody videotapes it, puts it on YouTube that night. Next morning, or the next week, we get a call from Storm Spell Records. Tracks us down and says, hey, are you guys back together? We're like, no, that was just like a one-off thing. And hey, we're interested in re-releasing the catalog, and we're interested in the band. And we're like, well, that sounds kind of interesting to us. That sounds like fun, yeah. So we decided to do that, talked to everybody was in, and then we decided, okay, let's do some reunion shows, the original lineup, to promote it. And we started rehearsing and doing it. Again, people's schedules got in the way.
Yeah.
So we did the best we could with me and Gary and Scott, Mike on occasion, but that was it. I think Mike did one show.
Yeah.
And then I think that was it. And so that just ended. That was the end of that. We had a quick little blast. And now we're back promoting. That all happens. Now we're back promoting this record. We get a call to go to play an open air,
Headbangers Open Air.
Headbangers Open Air. And so we're doing one festival, and then our manager starts booking other festivals and other shows. Now we got a 2-week run all over. And this is all booked a year in advance, at least. We get a month or so, a month and a half before we're gonna leave. The singer kind of flips out, and he's like, this is bull. I don't really want to go. This is complicated.
I don't even have a passport.
He's like, because he had to get a passport. I'm like, dude, this has been going on a year. This is not new news. It's a passport. It's not that complicated. So we tried negotiating with him multiple times, and he was just being difficult. And me and Scott were driving up north and going to see one of what's his name show? Randy Kastner's shows up in Milwaukee. And we said, you know what? One of the stipulations on doing some of these shows, they didn't want to hear this. They didn't want to hear this. They only wanted the cassette from these two records. So we had to go back in and learn a lot of old material. Luckily they did that because we had the last minute. Me and Scott said, dude, I think it's time we got to give Gary a call and see if he wants to do this. And I said, dude, nothing would make me happier if Gary would do this with us. So I called Gary on a Sunday, and I was like, dude, we got a deal. We're supposed to be in Europe to do a 2-week tour.
Mind you, I'm sitting in my car in my garage on a Sunday afternoon listening to this going, what?
So, and he's like, yeah, I'm in. You know? And he's like, so what do you need me? And I said, well, the problem is, we have a show this Saturday in Appleton, Wisconsin. And it was a punk show. But we were on the bill anyway. And I said, so if you could make practice on Tuesday, we could be playing on Saturday. And he said, yeah, let's do it. So he showed up Tuesday, we practiced Saturday.
First
show, and then we had a couple practices, and we did a couple local quick shows before we took off. And that's kind of what happened ever since.
And now they can't get rid of me.
Yeah. Now, since returning back to the band, you guys made a great record. Rage, you want to show it?
Yeah.
Can you tell us what led to this record?
Well, I feel like I'm doing all the talking.
No. It's good to hear you talk finally.
Yeah. I usually don't do any of this. I had a lot of coffee before I left the house. So,
all pumped up.
Yeah, so what happened was Gary knew somebody that hooked us up with Tom Hazer, which is business partners with Dave Ellison. So Gary calls me and goes, hey, I talked to somebody, they're interested, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, you take care of the business. Do you want to talk to me? I said, okay. So I talked to Tom, and he said, he knows the history of the band, and we talked, and he says, dude, I like all the records. We're really interested in signing you. It's EMP, Dave Ellison's label, EMP. We're like, sounds good. And he goes, well, we got something that's under wraps nobody knows about. Nobody knows about. Can't tell anybody, but you guys are scheduled, if you're interested, to be the first release on Combat Records. I'm like, wait, Combat? You're like, we just got the rights to the label and blah, 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 blah. We were like, it's gonna be you and Raven. Well, I don't know whatever happened to Raven. I don't know if that was a wish that didn't come true, but so we said, yeah, we're down. And we want it right away. We were like, we were not prepared. We didn't have any real new material written, ready to go for a record. This record was the follow-up record to this record. This is what Ron Gowdy shopped, or was going to shop, and we were going to release after Insane Society. But we, as a band, felt so strong about that material, we all decided to shelf it and weren't going to release or do anything with it until it was the right time, or it was never going to be the time. We just didn't want to just release it kind of with no big deal, no nothing behind it, kind of half-assed. So we just let it sit. So when the Combat thing happened, we decided it's time. So we all went in and kind of reanalyzed it. We rewrote some parts, retweaked it.
I rewrote all the
lyrics. He wrote all new lyrics. He kind of did his whole thing to it. And then
there was a lot of tweaks musically too. I mean, it's been brought up to date. Like if I heard
it need to be updated.
Yeah, I mean the original recordings were good and everything, but this blows it away.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I kind of felt when I heard this album, I actually wrote a review of it some time ago, that you were able to utilize all of this experience you had into proper use. There was nothing coincidental here.
Right.
It was very premeditated in the best way possible.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of how we felt. That's why we felt so strongly about that material, that record. So when it came time to do these things, we talked to Mike, major writer on this record, Dave, major, major writer on this record. So we just kind of said, hey, dudes, this is what we want to do. This is it. And everybody was cool with it, basically. We knew Gary was going to change all the lyrics and take his stuff and do his spin on everything. So we felt really and so strongly about the record that Chris DeJuric, who was our guitar player for a good chunk of the time and had recorded and wrote some of this record, we were like, we want him involved in this record, producing it, because nobody knows this material better than him. And as soon as Combat offered to do the deal, they said, we want Bill Metoyer to produce the record. And we're like, well, we're never going to turn down Bill Metoyer, ever.
Nope.
Super cool dude. I didn't know him until this record, but Gary had already worked with him and knew him, and he was super cool with him. So we were like, hell yeah, but we got to have Chris be kind of co-producer with it. They're like, yeah, absolutely. So we kind of worked it out where we did all the front end work with Chris, and then sent all the files to Bill, and then Bill took care of everything, and he tweaked things, changed things, and did things that he thought were necessary. And that's how that record came about. And
how did people react to original Wrath being back in business?
Thrilled.
Yeah.
Because I mean, locally
Gary.
people knew, but outside of Chicago area, people don't see the shows, but they hear the music finally.
Yeah, finally, because to this day already, we get this. So what's the next material? What's new? What do you got? You know what I mean? And so it's always that. And so to have this out there, we were thrilled to have something we were really proud of. And Dave Ellison was phenomenal to work with. Couldn't have been a nicer, couldn't be more willing to help in any way possible with the band. Out on the road, even off the road, even to this day after the fact, I'm still in contact with them. Totally cool. So it was exciting to actually be able to go out and go, we got new material. I finally got new vinyl. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I got something. You know what I mean? So,
to conclude, 40 years of Wrath, are you planning any special celebrations?
yes, absolutely.
What should we expect?
Well, I mean, we've all talked. Well, we're trying to negotiate an entire reunion of the entire Wrath history for the most part. Really focusing on these 3 records because this kind of paved the way. So Rick Rios, Mike Fran, Dave Solomon, Mike Nurkinen, Scott, Kurt, and so we're going to do a run to Texas, and we're going to do a handful of shows with Kurt's band.
Billy.
Bull by the Horn.
Oh, Bull by the Horn.
Bill band in Texas, Bull by the Horns. So he's going to come up. He's going to do some songs with us then. But we want to do a local Midwest Chicago, borderline Wisconsin show with the entire history from this record back. Trying to get them all on the same stage periodically throughout the night. So it's a bit of an undertaking. We're just now working out some details and trying to figure out time frames where everyone's available and
It will happen. It'll happen.
It's happening.
But it's just...
Gary, throughout the history of the band, you're the only consistent band member who was always in the band.
Yeah.
There you go. There's a halo there, right?
Yeah.
What drives you?
I wish I knew. I just loved doing this since I was this small, and the fact that I can do this for this many years with 4 of my best friends, even though they've all rotated from time to time. You're missing, trading Mike and Scott out, and the new guys. Our new guitar player Brian is one of the best guitar players that we could have landed to replace Scott, and just to go out and do the same stuff that I was doing at the JM Club with Gary, to do that now at our age, I don't feel any different doing it. I've got every ounce of spit and energy into every bass string then that I do now. and I get to do it with Gary and do it with these guys. So I couldn't be happier doing it. So
My thoughts is it.
you know,
I don't feel slowing down or anything like that. You know, so it's all good.
it's good.
Thank you.